We have to make sure we shout out your Instagram, because people always ask that.
Oh, totally.
Be like, follow me. Okay, so we're live here in New York City in my studio with Erica. Welcome to OnSet. I'm Daniel Norton. We're doing this one live. We came back to our format that we used a few videos back. I asked you guys if you liked it, and we got some positive response. So we're gonna do this thing in basically a live format. We're using a new kind of cool device that we got called Sling Studio that allows us to do multicam on location. So it's pretty cool. So here we are. And like I said, we're gonna do this live. This is not gonna be like a formal shoot today, really. It's gonna be a little more techy. I wanna go over how to set your flash exposure because I get a lot of questions, and the reason why I chose to do this one live is because if you guys have questions, please ask them and we'll try to roll through it as we go. When you're setting up your flash, what you wanna do, if you don't plan on using any of the light in the space, which is how we're gonna operate today, is you wanna set your ambient exposure so it's very underexposed. Basically, you get a black exposure. I'm not going to go through that really thoroughly today because I go through it every single time I do a live video on Thursday, so check out any of those videos and I go through it at the beginning. But basically, our camera is set right now at 100 ISO, 250th of a second at 5.6, and when I take a photo, it will be black. I already did a quick test, so I know I've got a black shot. That means that only my flash is going to affect my shot. That's how I want to start, right? So there's three main ways that you would set your flash exposure. One is through TTL metering, one is through using a light meter, and then the third way would be using your histogram. So I'm going to go through each one of those and kind of show you how I'll get the exposure here on Erica for simple portrait. This is Erica, if I didn't already say that. She's back from tour. Yep, there we go. That's how we like time stamp it right there, because now we know that she just got back. So this is like 10 years from now, you're gonna be like, she just got back? Anyways, got my Canon camera here. It's got an 85mm lens on it. This is a Profoto B1X. I've got it set up in channel or zone C. And I've had my controller on top. Now again, actually before I turn this on, like it just to show you, if I take a photo as it is, we're gonna get a black frame. I'm in Capture One here, which is how I typically shoot. I'm tethered in so you guys can see the photos. Okay, so number one, TTL. So TTL means through the lens metering. What that essentially means is you're using your camera's meter when you make a flash exposure. A lot of times people don't use it so much in the studio because it basically re-meters every single time you take a frame. So it's great if you're doing like a wedding or on location, lights changing, models moving, lights moving. If everything's in place, then it's not necessarily needed, but it is a feature that's in a lot more flashes now. So we're gonna go over that one first. So I've got it set at 0. And again, I told you my exposure already. My softbox is just set up as a kind of a classic 45. And take a shot. Now, typically with TTL, you're going to need to make some kind of adjustment based on how you want it to be. Like it's probably going to give you a proper exposure, meaning not completely blown out. And if I check this, actually a few of my highlights are a little bit hot on her forehead, but even in my hots, I'm still pretty good. I'm right at the edge of bright. I don't want to risk that and shoot, too close to the edge personally, so I would make an adjustment. And the way that you do that is you do that in camera. So I'm going to use my camera's metering system, as I said, so I'm going to use my little quick menu here so you guys can see it. Basically, you've got flash exposure compensation here. I'm going to set it, and I'm just going to tell it to give me less exposure, maybe like 1 stop less exposure. I'll do a stop and a third. Go a little bit darker. So what this theoretically should do is give me a darker exposure, right? So now we've got these two exposures. This is with the 0, and that is with the adjusted TTL exposure. And we can see that we got nice clean light across the face. Okay, guys see the difference there? Now, I'll just leave it there and keep shooting if I was gonna work in TTL, and then she could move around and we would keep a good exposure. Since I'm moving on, I'm gonna now use a light meter. So light meter is probably the more classic way to do this for most people. I switched my remote here, by the way, to manual now, so it's not gonna work in TTL. And I'm just gonna take this and I'm changing the power up here randomly, just to reset myself, and I'll just take a picture. All right, so that's like if I didn't do anything, right? So you've got your light meter, and the way the light meter is gonna work is I'm gonna set the parameters in my light meter. I've got it at, again, 250th of a second, 100 ISO. I don't know if you guys can see that, you'll have to trust me. So I put those numbers in, right? Once I've done that, I take my light meter, I'm just gonna use the remote to fire it, and I'm going to point my light meter at the light source, close to my model. You have to be careful with light meters. If you put it too close to the model, they try to grab it. So keep a good firm grip on it. Fire that, and I can see it's giving me f16.8. So we know that's going to be overexposed. I just showed you that's overexposed. Depending on your lighting system, like this one has a remote in it, so I can turn the power down from here, like magic. So I'll do that. I'm going to turn it down 3 stops to get myself closer before I start tweaking it. Perfect. It would help if you turn down the light that's in the proper group, by the way. If you turn down the light in the wrong group, nothing will happen. Oh, 56.8. Give it a little more power. Well, actually, I'm going for 5.6 today, so I'm going to go down. And essentially, I'm just adjusting my power here. You could do the same thing on the back of the unit. Just a matter of tweaking it. There we go. That should be pretty good. So now I've set my flash to be at 5.6. So theoretically, I'll put this back on top of the camera. I'm like glowing up over here. Right? That should give us, that's actually a little bit dark. So what you'll find with metering, no matter how you do it, the TTL metering I had set, it was a little overexposed. Handheld meter seems a little bit dark. The meter is just going to get you close to where you need to be. From there, you're going to need to look at your image and adjust. I can see here that it's probably half a stop too dark, so I'm just going to turn my light up, half a stop. Never just blindly trust your meter. That's pretty good. And now we've got a proper exposure. Okay, and again, you can adjust to taste. I think that's pretty good though. Good, maybe a smidge darker, just to see the difference. Now, if I were shooting, let's say a job or setting something up, the way that I would note this is not necessarily the power that I have my flash set on, but rather I would set the proportion. So I'm metering it at 5.6, but then I'm giving it more power. So I want to make sure I say that. Meter it and then give it about a stop more power. Cool. Yeah. Questions? We're good? Okay. There's all kinds of crazy stuff going on. Okay. Now, I'm like blowing up in Mars. The third way to do this, which is actually kind of a fun way to do it and really useful, and you can also use this with ambient light. This is actually one of my favorite little tools. This is a pocket digital calibration target. I talk about this a lot, so I'll actually show it. It's from PhotoVision. I'll just keep doing that so you can't get a shot of it. And the way this works is, you've essentially got, you can see I use it a lot, it's getting a little bit yellow. You see you've got black, you've got neutral gray, you've got white, right? These are also completely neutral for white balance, so you can use it whenever you want to do custom white balance. And the way we do this is we're going to use this to activate a histogram for us, right? We're basically going to take this, and again, I'm going to reset my light. I'll put it wherever, I won't look. Okay, we'll just take a shot like that, see where we're at. Right? Okay, so my light is too dark, whatever. We have the model, hold it, and play peekaboo with it. So we're going to do that. Now the important thing here is you need to fill the frame with the target. It doesn't need to be in focus. So if your lens doesn't focus close enough, like this one won't focus close enough, it doesn't matter. So I'm going to put it in manual focus. I'm just going to get in close. You want to get as much as possible equal parts white, gray, and black. So I'm going to take a photo of that. And I'm going to look now at my histogram over here. And we can see that the histogram is, can I make that bigger? Yes, I can. We can see the histogram is way over here to the side. It's underexposed by 2 stops. Wow, it's loud here. What you can do is, if you're in something like Capture One, one of the simple things to do is to grab your exposure slider and start to bring it over until your histogram gets more spread out the way it should be. And that'll tell you basically how underexposed you are. If you don't have that, you can just kind of give yourself more exposure till you get where you're at. So what I think I'll do is, I'm gonna give it 2 stops to start. So I'm gonna turn my light up 2 stops. And we'll take another shot, just like that. Bring it down a tiny bit, right there. Good. That's closer. Gotta give it a little more. Give it like another half a stop. Ideally, you're gonna get more or less centered with the lights. A little bit more. And again, we're just turning this up a little bit at a time, trying to get that histogram. There we go. That's pretty good. I think it might just be like 2/10 too bright. That's close enough, right? So here I am. By the way, I now have a neutral that I can use for white balance. So that's also good. So if you're not going to use it for that, you can do that. Put that guy over there. Never. If nobody's watching, I can fold that thing up like nothing. But if somebody's watching me, you know how it is. I sing really good when I'm in the shower. Exactly. All right, so we've got the flash set to where we think it should be. I'm going to take a shot. And again, this is going to be my base shot. Okay, it's a smidge bright actually. So from here, I'm just going to turn it down a bit. Again, I can do it from the remote if I want. There we go. And you finesse it to wherever you like. Once you're where you want to be, we can bang that out, and we're good. Right? So all three of those methods work, right? You've got TTL, which is great if things are moving around. It's really, really fast, but not available in every system, right? You've got a light meter, which can be really precise, especially if you're using a lot of lights. But remember, never just trust your light meter. You can always adjust from there. Use it as a base to start with. And then, of course, you get the digital target, which, to be honest, I use it as a backup for all of it anyways. I always bring it in for the white balance, so why not take a quick histogram shot to see it? Helps you interpret the histogram really easily. But that's three simple ways to do it. We're going to shoot some more shots with Erica, and you'll see her in some future videos. Hold on, Fernando's raising his hand.
No, just questions. Why not?
Oh, yeah, there's questions. Go for it.
So why not trust your light meter?
Okay, so the light meter is a machine, right? It's only going to give you what it believes to be the correct exposure, right? And technically, all those exposures were fine. None of them were completely bad exposures. They weren't exactly how you like it. You use the light meter to get yourself close. You use your own eye and your own knowledge and skill and style to get the exposure where you want it.
Cool. And how are you triggering the flash using the light meter?
Oh, okay, so when I use the light meter, I just took my Profoto trigger and held it in my hand. There's basically a test button on it. I'll show it to you. There's a little button right there, if you can see that. It's fun to do just if the model's not paying attention, you can just get them in line. Some meters, like this one, actually has a built-in Pocket Wizard receiver, so if I was using Pocket Wizard, I could actually do it without an additional, transmitter, I should say, without an additional transmitter.
And some advice on choosing the light meter.
Okay, so what light meter to buy? That's a good question. It really depends on what you're doing. Any simple light meter will probably work for most people. Like the Sekonic 308, I always recommend to people if they don't have anything. It's a good, simple light meter. It's very inexpensive. It does most of the things you need. This one does a few more advanced functions. This is the 358. I think it's been replaced now with the one that has a touch screen on it. This one can do things like put in multiple ISOs or do ratios and stuff like that in the meter. So if you're going to do more advanced stuff, you might want to spend, the $500 or whatever it is for this versus the $150 or whatever for the other one. And then some light meters have a spot meter, which is a reflected meter that you can then very specifically target areas. That's great for very specific, like if you're shooting in the skylines or if you're shooting product photography and you got to really nail it. But those end up costing a little bit more. So it depends on what you need. If you're not using one at all, I'd start off simple. You don't need to go crazy.
And finally, the best way to power down overall without changing ratios.
Oh, well, that's cool. So if you have everything the way you want it to look, ratio-wise, right? But let's say you decide you want to open up your lens for more shallow depth of field. It depends on your system, but technically, if you're using the Profoto system, you can actually set it to just bring all the lights down at once, which would work if you're in TTL. If you're manual, well, you already know where you're at. You can look at the number on the flash, like this one right here is currently 6.4. So if I know I want to go down one stop, I could bring it down to 5.4. And if my light back there was 3.8, I'd bring it down to 2.8, etc. That's usually the simplest way to bring them all down at once. Other questions? Good. All right, cool. So thanks for watching. Be sure to subscribe to Adorama TV. Also, Erica Lynn
Bridge, yep.
Erica Lynn Bridge on Instagram, if you want to check her out. You'll see pictures of her eating food and stuff, or whatever people put on Instagram these days. Check me out on social media on Facebook. I'll actually put, well, probably not these, but other pictures up on Daniel Norton Photographer on my Facebook. And be sure to subscribe to Adorama TV. which I said twice, so they should do it twice. And I'll see you next time on set.